Hi, my name's Rich Harrington, and welcome to this week's edition of Photoshop for Video. In case you didn't notice, there's a giant cow over my shoulder. I'd like to say thanks. The folks over at Creative Cow have partnered with us to bring you an even better podcast. So after watching the show, feel free to head on over to creativecow.net, where you can check out the Photoshop forums, ask questions, as well as find out other great tutorials and things you could download and interact with. Today, we're going to take a look at smart objects, which are really useful. They're available to you in Photoshop CS3 and CS4, and they do a lot of great things to really help you with flexibility during design. Let's jump in. I'm going to go ahead and create a new document, File, New. And let's just go with a video preset. We'll work with a high def size comp here, and we'll go with 720p. Click OK, and make a new document. Now, a smart object is just this. It is an embedded copy of the original object in your document. So if you take a photo or a vector file, it writes that into the layer and stores all of the original resolution. This means you could design it and then scale it up and make it bigger in the future, as long as you don't go over the original size. Let's see how it works. I'm going to choose File, Place, and navigate to a new image. Let's go here, and we'll grab our first photo and click Place, and it drops it in. One of the other things I like about the Place command is that it automatically scales the image down to fit within the constraints of the document. So this saves you on having to sit there and scale a large photo down to work for video. We'll go ahead and hold down Shift and Option here and just scale this up a bit until it fits the frame, and nudge that over and press Return. Now if you look closely in the Layers palette, you'll see a different icon attached to that layer, and that icon is indicating that this is a smart object. Smart objects have lots of benefits. For example, if we were to scale this object down, very, very small, and then change our mind or have a producer change their mind, you still have the full high-resolution image embedded into that layer. Just choose Command-T for free transform or Control-T on a PC, and you can blow it up all the way to its original size of the original document. So this gives you a lot of flexibility with your layers. Another nice thing to realize, it's not a link. Unlike After Effects that links to the object, this is actually embedded in the Photoshop document. So if you place a RAW file, you get all the flexibility of Camera Raw. Place a vector file, you get infinite ability to scale. Plus, another really cool thing about smart objects is the use of smart filters. When we have a layer here that's a smart object, I can go ahead and apply filters, such as a Gaussian blur. And let's put that really heavy. And then, of course, we would decide with better time of judgment that that really was a little too much blur. So we could just double-click on that filter and adjust its value. What you have there are live effects, just like you'd have over in After Effects or a video editing tool. Plus, you get the ability to blend. So if you double-click on this little arrow here, up pops the blending options, which means you could take advantage of blend modes. For example, soft light there to get a nice sort of soft halo or pro mist look. Let's go ahead and choose Filter, Stylize, Glowing Edges, and you'll see the Velvet Elvis filter, which is terribly useless on its own. But we can go ahead here and play with a few options. We'll click OK after we tweak it, and then immediately double-click on its blending options, and we can go ahead and drop that to screen mode and lower the opacity a bit, and now we have a nice sort of illustration look. Let's take that a little further. Filter, Stylize, Find Edges, and I'll do the same sort of thing. Let's just blend that, putting that into multiply mode and lowering the opacity a bit. And now we have a nice sort of cartoonish look. We've taken this photo and made it look a little bit more like an illustration. Notice lots of flexibility with that smart object. I'll go ahead and drop in another layer here with File, Place, and this is another file that actually has some transparency already in it. Comes on in, transparency was already attached to the layer, that's fine. We could scale that where we want, position it, and apply. Notice that worked fine. But if you don't want to use the File Place command, you can still access smart objects. Let's just toss that away, and in this case, we'll open up that particular layer. There we go. Comes on in, It has a layer mask attached. Let's go ahead and just drag that layer in. Drag, drop. Drops in. And before I start to scale it or do anything else, I will simply right-click on it and tell it to convert it to a smart object. Now, as we start to scale that, you'll see that I can make all the changes I want. We could scale that down small, put it in the corner, apply it, change our mind, blow it back up. So you still have all that flexibility with your design. And that's the great thing about smart objects. You could choose to create them with the File Place command, or simply convert them with a right-click in the middle of the design process. And that right-click method works really well if you have several layers stacked together that you want to go ahead and collapse into something like a pre-composition. Let's go ahead and toss that layer away for a second. And what I'm going to do is just stylize this real quick. We'll toss on a solid color, and let's just put a color into the background there and set that to multiply mode. There we go. And I'm going to strip the color out, adding a hue saturation adjustment layer, and we'll just strip the color out. There we go. Now, let's take a look at this with vectors. File, Place. I'm going to grab a vector file and add it to my document there. So the vector file came in. We can go ahead and scale that and hit return. And because it's vector, we can continue to scale that all day long. Notice, let's take that really large, and when I press return, it redraws. So if you use smart objects with vector objects, you get infinite scalability. There's another cool thing here, though, and that is the ability to swap smart objects. So here I had one version of a logo, and I decided, you know, we want to make a change. Well, no big deal. We could select that smart object and say, Layer, Smart Objects, Replace Contents, and simply grab the alternate version of the logo and press return, and it will actually swap those two out. There you see it. So smart objects are very flexible. You can quickly swap their contents in and out, or if you needed to, go back and say Layer, Smart Objects, and you can actually export the contents right out of there, or even choose to edit it in another application like Illustrator if you placed an Illustrator file. So smart objects really are useful to the design process. They unlock things like smart filters, they give you infinite ability to scale, and you can more appropriately deal with those changes that pop up in the Edit Suite. For Photoshop for Video, I'm Rich Harrington. I invite you to check out more over at creativekyle.net.